Lift every voice and sing.
Good evening, America. Hello, Chicago. And what's up, West Side? This is P. Ray of Black Excellence Hour, a show for people with high self-esteem. You could have been doing anything on this cold, wet Sunday, the last Sunday of the year, and you chose to come hang out with me today at Black Excellence Hour. And as always, I truly appreciate the company. If you are watching live on the Black Excellence Hour's Facebook page or on X at the Chicago Red P page or on the Intellectual Radio YouTube page, share the live, share the live. Today, we have a guest that's going to join us from the live line. Something really strange is happening in Cleveland, Ohio. There's a gentleman named Paul Brown Jr. who was found deceased by his family. He sat in the funeral home for 2 years on ice. Then they buried him without a death certificate, and the family came to Black Excellence Hour for help. So you guys know that we are in the business of helping people. And we are going to get this out into the public today. I was very kind of surprised in a way when the family contacted me. I'm like, how do y'all find me in Chicago? They were like, no, we know who Black Excellence Hour is. So shout out to them. Shout out to the show. Shout out to everybody. First things first, you all know how this goes every single week. We are going to get a dose of self-esteem from the greatest president to ever do it. Now, I'm a little pissed at Donnie, but I don't think that Donnie understands what's going on, and we're going to talk about why P. Ray is a tad bit perturbed with Donnie because it looks like this deportation move is happening, but it's not happening, and that's because they want to increase the H-1B visas, but we'll talk about that in a moment. First things first, let's get this dose of self-esteem from the greatest president to ever do it. And I mean greatest. I mean, even with him in this visa issue, I think that once he understands how upset the people are, he is going to fix this. And that man is Donald J. Trump Sr. Roll tape.
Americans built this nation. You built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right? But through generations of blood, sweat, and tears, and you deserve a government that defends your interests, protects your families, and cares for our own citizens first. My administration is fighting with everyone and all our heart to reverse the pain inflicted by Democrat leaders and to deliver hope and opportunity and prosperity for all Americans, but for African-American communities all throughout our land. And our agenda is lifting up citizens of every background, race, religion, color, and creed. But while we are fighting every day to build up our nation, the far left only wants to wreck, ruin, and destroy our nation.
All right. Again, that was Donald J. Trump Sr. letting us know exactly who we are. We're going to talk a little fast today because we're a little behind, and that's okay. First things first, I want to say happy birthday to Miss Deborah Roberts. Miss Deborah Roberts, she is a huge supporter of the show, always got P. Ray back, and today is her birthday. So happy birthday to Miss Deborah. I also want to give my condolences to the Muhammad family. Miss Barbara Muhammad, who's also a huge supporter of the show. She lost her mother. Her mother passed on. So we want to give our condolences to her on behalf of the show. With that being said, we are having a New Year's party. Blexit, Illinois is hosting a New Year's party for Chicago Red. So Blexit, Illinois presents America's Victory Soiree 2025. This is going to be on Tuesday, hosted by yours truly. We are starting at 9 p.m. and the tickets are $40. If you're interested, please email Illinois at Blexit, BLEXIT.com. That's Illinois at Blexit.com. We're going to have food, refreshments, drinks for those who indulge. And I'm making this black eyed pea salad, which is absolutely mwah, delicious. It is going to be super duper fun. We got to eat our black eyed peas after we do the countdown for good luck. We're all going to do this together. It's going to be a great time. This is going to be held at Milieu by DPS, which is located at 2134 West 18th, Chicago 60608. Again, that's 2134 West 18th from 9:30 to 1 a.m. We're really going to have a good time. So come pop out with us as we count down and celebrate the new year. I also want to give a shout out to Chairman Fred Hampton. Today is his 55th birthday. When I leave here, I'm going to out there way out south. Y'all know I don't even go south of Cermak, but today I'm going to go party with Fred. That is my guy. Now that we've gotten all of the announcements out of the way, let's get really quickly through our current events. Right now, social media is going insane because of the H-1B visas. So H-1B visas are this special type of visa that employers use to import foreign workers. We have Vivek, who is in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency. He and Elon Musk are like co-partners in doing this. And so both of them have stated that they are going to push very, very hard for the H-1B visas to keep going. And then we had people like Ron DeSantis, who says that they don't support undercutting American wages, and H-1B visas were used to do that. So this is what we did some research in the MAGA world, because people were like, oh my God, y'all are talking against the H-1B visas. Y'all, this is not just for engineers, by the way, okay? Because Vivek and Elon are like, we need these specialized genius people, these engineers, they have to come to America, and this is why we are going to have these H-1 visas. Friends, first off, every December and June, there are engineering students at the bachelor's, master's, and doctorate levels who are graduating with degrees in engineering. So it's a huge indictment against the people, the Americans, who are actually going into debt to learn these skills for them to try to put these foreign workers in over them. And that's because the foreign workers will work harder for less money. But this is America, and we deserve our wages. We did some research, and we found out that this is not just for engineers. Oh no, friends. They're actually looking for H-1B visas to go to places like Jackson, Mississippi, and teach English for $50,000. They also want them to go to the Warren County schools, which are in Warrenton, North Carolina. They want them to teach English there. They want them to come to Knoxville Catholic High School and teach English there. They want them to come to the Elam Community Partners LLC in Pineville, North Carolina, and teach there. They want them to come to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and teach there as well. As if we do not have teacher preparation programs all over America, as if this is not the United States of America and we are truly teaching English. They're also looking for people who are going to be consultants, and they're looking to staff those jobs all over the country. They're also looking for people to work at 7-Elevens. They're looking at people to work as janitors. They're looking for people to work all types of jobs that Americans can work. So right now there's this huge rift happening in the MAGA world because of the H-1B visas. But as I always do, I look at things and I say, count it all joy, because what this movement has done is linked everyday Americans together, because Vivek said that Americans don't work hard enough. We need to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and we are a meritocracy, and that does not give us the best results. And it's funny because everything that Vivek is saying to white people have been saying to the Negro for years. Y'all just got to work harder, and that's why you can't get a job. But they actually brought this H-1B visa system into play after the civil rights movement to once again depress Negro wages. And now it's gotten completely out of control, like an invasive species. And here we are. But the patriots of all colors have come together and they said, absolutely not. Absolutely not are we going to accept this. So I hope that Madani gets this together, because I would hate to fall out with him over American jobs, but we will take it there. Remember, we are here for the American people, and we have to hold all American politicians accountable, especially Madani. Moving on. Let's talk about World War III really, really quickly. So y'all know I keep up with the war. This is like my favorite thing to watch. I think that in my mind, I'm G.I. Jane. So I watch the war go down every single night. And this is what we have come up with as of Showtime today. First things first, Benjamin Netanyahu has been diagnosed with stage 3 prostate cancer. He's going to get surgery to get it, and they're saying that this may not look good for him. So at this moment, Benjamin Netanyahu is not doing well because of cancer. Also, the Russians shot a plane in Azerbaijan down across when they were crossing the Black Sea. I'm sure you guys saw the plane crash. They hit them with a missile and all the people went down and they crashed. Vlad, as in Vladimir Putin, said that he did this, it was a mistake, and now the president of Azerbaijan said that he is going to demand compensation from Russia. So I'm sure Jim Crow Joe and the Pentagon are going to scoop up the president of Azerbaijan and the Azerbaijani people at this moment, at this very, very moment, to put them on their team, because again, friends, we are in World War III. It's also important to remember that this issue in Gaza is not just limited to Gaza. The Israeli communications minister said, the future of Jerusalem's gates guiding our path is to lead us to the gates of Damascus, Syria. So the Israelis are looking to next conquer Syria because they're building Greater Israel. And Greater Israel includes pieces of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. So this war is not going to decline or go down anytime soon. Also, Madani is not the president yet. However, he is out here making deals. And so he said that he wants to basically put the membership of Ukraine joining NATO on hold for 20 years. That way they could stop fighting the war. They won't have to worry about Ukraine joining NATO, and then he'll be out of office when this comes up again. Well, Vladimir Putin said, hell no, are you crazy? We said no, not under any circumstances are we going to accept any type of Ukraine's thinking about joining NATO. So they tried to stop the war. Russians said that they are still going to go for it. And we'll see how this works. But at this very moment, Donald Trump is trying to stop the war. Moving on. Rest in peace to President Jimmy Carter. He passed away today. At 100 years old. Remember, they lied and said that he put in a ballot for Kamala Harris. We saw Jimmy Carter at his family's event. He did not at all, not even a little bit, was able to put his voting in. So they actually perpetuated ballot fraud, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to say rest in peace. Rest in peace to President Jimmy Carter. He did his part. He tried to build habitat homes for everybody, and he passed away. Lastly, before we get to our guest, I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy one last time. Vivek Ramaswamy is one of my least favorite people in American politics. I'm saying this across X. I hope that Elon does not take my check mark. However, Vivek is a first generation American who has benefited from having brown skin because they used affirmative action, which was meant to repair the damages of Jim Crow against the Negro. He used that and he came up. Well, today he said that it's time to end affirmative action because America is the land of meritocracy. This is why I agree with this, but I don't agree with it. I personally always say get rid of affirmative action and get rid of DEI. Get rid of minority status, get rid of people of color, get rid of BIPOC, get rid of all of these things that lump the Negro in with non-white immigrants. Because white immigrants just get to come to America and be white folks. But if you are a non-white immigrant, then you get to be lumped in with the Negro and then use all of the Negro social and political capital to come up for your people. So in that breath, I say get rid of it all. The best things that happened in 2024 was them smacking down affirmative action. I'm telling you guys, it is so important that in 2025 that the Negro clearly and very distinctly, intentionally delineate ourselves. We are not an American race. We are Black people, and Black people are all over the planet. Yes, we are. But when we are talking about the Negro, that is specifically discussing an American ethnicity. We are a 100% American ethnicity that is mixed with African, European, and Native bloodlines exclusively found in North America and the United States of America. That's us. So we are only going to go and push for us and our people and the children of the freedmen. So all of this affirmative action stuff, don't get angry over it, but know that we got to stop the H-1B visa process because that was specifically put into place to stifle Negro wages. And people are saying, oh, you're xenophobic. You better be xenophobic as an American. Are you crazy? Don't let people trick you out of your birthright. It is very, very serious as we look at ourselves moving forward, because if we don't get it together, we will be left behind. Lastly, and some really quick Chicago news, let me tell y'all about the CTU. Whew. So they tried to fire Pedro, and Pedro looked at his contract, and the contract stated that even if they fire Pedro, he still gets to be in charge for 6 months after he's fired. So Pedro is not fired. That was all fake news. He's still running the Chicago Public Schools. However, there has been a request to the Attorney General of the United States of America, who are the feds, to check out the relationship between Brandon Johnson, CTU, and CPS. Currently, Brandon Johnson is still employed by the Chicago Teachers Union. He's just on leave, wink, wink. So he is basically running in negotiations from both sides of the table, but he has his finger on the scale for the CTU. P. Ray, why are you always talking about CTU? Because I think that they trifling. So this week, CTU has been flooding social media with these sad stories. Oh my God, we're trying to get housing for our students, and this is a right, and we have to make it happen because if we don't, the kids won't have anywhere to live, and we gotta bargain for this. These people are lying and playing with your emotions. At this very moment, friends, the Chicago Housing Authority has $1,800,000,000. The Chicago Housing Authority has $1,800,000,000 at this very moment. So if CTU was very serious about making sure that the students had somewhere to live, they would be pushing for the Chicago Housing Authority to spend the money that they're clearly hoarding. However, that money is only for Americans because it's American federal money. So you have to have a social security number to access CHA funds. And these people do not have them. And when I say these people, the people that they are clearly advocating for. So as they're talking and gaslighting people and playing these games and telling you that they're doing this for housing, know that the Chicago Housing Authority has $1,800,000,000 right now. And if the CTU is not pushing them to spend that money, then friends, they're pushing for money for the illegals. CTU is trying to get the illegals housed because we saw them get evicted from 7350 South Phillips. So now they're on the streets. Make sure you lock your doors, double lock your doors. Make sure you look out your window before you leave your garage, and keep some hollow points on your person at all times after taking your 16-hour class. This is not a game, and the Chicago Teachers Union is clearly in on this grift. Remember, friends, they have been going to Venezuela for over a decade, making deals with these people. With all of that being said, we're going to pull up some callers. I think I have my guest on the line. I'm not sure which lines are theirs. But if you want to join the conversation, 773-345-9977. Let's take a couple callers. Let me try to pull up my guest first. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Welcome.
How are you doing? This is Patricia Brown Bamberg.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you so much for being here with us. I'm going to try to pull up the other people that you have with you. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. One moment. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour. Hello, guest.
Hello, how you doing? This is Trustee Lily Jones, Vice President of the Anti-Negro Defamation League. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Wait, hold that thought, love. I'm going to put you back in the queue. One moment. Let's see, because I want to pull up my guests first. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour. Are you with me? Caller?
Hello?
Yes?
This is Elder Paul Brown Jr. III.
Are you here with Miss Patricia to talk about Mr. Paul?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Hold on one.
I'm the son.
Yes, sir. And there are just two of you that are going to be talking today, correct?
We have the ANDL organization, Ms. Princess and Mr. Talent. They're with us also.
Okay, hold on. Mr. Lil John?
Yes, this is Rashid. Princess is online as well.
Okay, so do I have everybody here?
I don't know if you have Princess, her 757.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to pull her up. Yep. All right, I think I have everybody here. Everybody, welcome to Black Excellence Hour. And to our listeners, today we're going to talk about the strange story of Mr. Paul Brown. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for trusting me enough to get your story out here to everyone. Rashid, I think that you have your TV up too loud because we are getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, I'll mute it up. Sorry.
Okay. So, Miss Pat?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome to the show. Give us a little background on what happened to your father, because you shared it with me online. And this story is very, very bizarre. So I wanted to make sure that the people could hear this story so that we can know what's happening in Ohio, and we could possibly bring some awareness or even some resources to you all to help you get the service that you need.
Okay, thank you so much. My father, Sergeant Paul Brown Jr., he was a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart. He was 69 years old. He was living in Cincinnati, Ohio. When he was found in his apartment, he was beaten to death. His penis was cut. He didn't have a bottom lip. He was found in his long johns with his pants down, penis cut. He was found by the police. The coroner never came to the scene. They refused to do an autopsy on my father's body. We was banned from the funeral home for 3 days. We was banned from my father's apartment for a week. They refused to do an autopsy. My father's body was taken to the funeral home without the consent of me and my siblings, and he was frozen in the funeral home 2 years and 7 months. They basically took my father's body hostage, but we couldn't get any help. He was murdered. My father was murdered before Mr. George Floyd was, but a lot of people never knew about it because they covered my father's murder up. My father is buried at this point now. He was never confirmed dead by anyone. He's buried now without a legal death certificate.
How does this
So we're
happen?
trying to get justice for him.
Yes, ma'am. So when
Ma'am?
he was at the funeral home, did they charge you all for storage? Or I mean, like, because I know that here when people pass away, the first thing they say is you got to get your people gone, or we're gonna cremate them, or you got to pay us storage. How did the funeral home end up holding on to him for 2 years?
Well, what happened when we got the news my father had passed, because we was calling his apartment on May 29th, 2017, but he didn't answer. And when my aunt, which is his sister, called the police department to do a well check, they called her back and said that they were sorry they had bad news that my father had passed. But when my aunt called me, I reached out to the funeral home because the police said that the funeral home was coming to get my father's body. And my aunt said, no, don't move him. He have daughters. But they did it anyway. So when I reached out to the funeral home to ask them, how could they get my father's body without our consent? And we told him we was coming up. That's when we got in Tennessee, he called me back and he said, I'm sorry, I have bad news. You can't see your father. So to answer your question, they took the body hostage. They held the body for 2 years, 7 months. They have a bill for $62,000, but they say they don't want the money at this time. They want the body. They say they invested in my father's body. Yes, sir. So, yes, ma'am. Not only did they take the body without our consent, they kept the body. And when we did get access to the funeral home, and I saw my father was beaten in the face, and we requested an autopsy, and the director of the funeral home said no. He said the coroner and the police department said this was medical. And I said, no, this is not medical. And my father's beaten in the face. So they used another law in the state of Cincinnati, Ohio. We couldn't transport my father's body back to Barnwell, South Carolina without having a death certificate. And the director of the funeral home told me that the coroner wouldn't talk to him. So by law, we couldn't move the body, not knowing after we left, they made a fake death certificate. And we didn't find out until a year later that they made one saying it was medical with my name on it, saying I was the informant. We didn't even know a death certificate existed. Yes, ma'am. So the whole time they had him frozen. They was going to take the body and they was going to use the laws to cover up their murder. And they was going to bury him in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the only way we found out about it, we did a YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw that video.
Story, reaching out for help. Yes, ma'am. And an attorney called me saying that I want to fly down, fight for your family rights. Your father's a Vietnam veteran. He deserves justice. So trusting him, he being a black man, and he also said he was a pastor, we gave him the medical records when he flew down. Everything got quiet, and he was working for the funeral home the whole time. He made my father's death certificate, a fake death certificate. So we really need some help.
Why?
We don't know what else to do. We don't reach out to so many people. Yes, ma'am. He's buried with a fake death certificate.
Who would be invested in fictitiously burying your father? Like, who would gain from this?
Well, the landlord, I feel the landlord killed my father along with the police. My father, he was going to the VA because he had mental health issues. He served in the Vietnam War. And we found out later after he died that the police was going to his house, taking him and locking him down at the VA. And in his medical records, he said he needed help. He needed someone to help take care of him because he couldn't do it. So I feel on this day, May 29th, Veterans Memorial Day, a day he was supposed to have been honored. They went there and they tried to lock him up again, but he opened the door, they knocked on the door, and when he saw who it was, they busted down. Because keep in mind, the police admit to knocking the door down. They say they knocked the door down because they went to check on my father, and they called the landlord when he didn't answer the door, and they opened the door, but it was a chain on the inside. But my thing is, if they knocked the door down, the police knocked the door down, how could a piece of the door and the guitar be up under my father's body? He had to been standing up.
Correct.
And the police, yes, ma'am, the police lied. It gets worse than that. Years after we found out my father was murdered, I spoke with the witness on the phone. He was the only person that took my father's body out of the house, him and another officer. And the problem with that, he said it was only one officer. He took my father's body out of the house on a Saturday. The police made a police report stating on that Monday when we called that they went around to the side of the windows was locked, and then they proceeded to call the landlord. But the problem with that also, if the chain was locked on the inside, when the police unlocked the door, and he said the windows was locked, if someone else killed him, how could they get out the house? They lied. If nobody's in the house but my father, and all the windows are locked, and it's a chain on the inside, if someone killed him on the inside, how could they get out the house if the windows are locked? So the police lied. They killed my father.
When you reached out to the people in Cincinnati, how did they respond to you? Because if it was my daddy, everybody knows that P. Ray don't play about her daddy. So if it was my daddy, oh my God, it would have been hell and brimfire rained down upon these people. When you and your siblings showed up, yes, ma'am, what did they say?
Well, they covered it up. The thing is, the people that was supposed to protect us, they was covering it too. And a good example is the judge. How we found out about the court date, I had a dream that my father was being buried in Baltimore, South Carolina. I dreamed that we was running around the circle. He was kissing my mom and everybody. And I was standing there in the dream, and I asked this girl what was going on. She said, your father's being buried today. So when I woke up, I called my brother, and I said, Paul, let me call the courthouse, because the funeral home was nasty to us. Everybody, is quiet now. Let me call the courthouse. So when I called the courthouse, it was a white guy answered the phone, and I told him who my name was. And I said, do you have any information on my father, Paul Brown Jr.? And he said, yes, ma'am. We have a court date, December the 3rd. The funeral home wants the remains of your father's body. And I said, what? But I was never served at the court date. He said, yes, ma'am. It's December the 3rd. So me and my brother and my mom and my kids, we got in the van. We drove over 13 hours. We didn't even sleep at all. The only thing we had time to do is get a room, wash up, go straight to the courthouse. And I tried to explain to the judge, I had 3 different death certificates, no seal on them. The first one was given to me by the dirty attorney with no seal. The second one was given to me by the funeral home, handwritten, no seal. The third one was given to me from the VA. When I found out about the 2 fake death certificates, I said, wait a minute. My father's a Vietnam veteran. Let me go to the VA to get help. Right. I went to the VA and I spoke with Miss Patricia Brown. She gave me a 3rd death certificate. She said, I'm so sorry. The doctor never signed this death certificate. And it was void. And I'm like, huh? Wait a minute.
This is wild. So the lawyer himself, he is based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Did you all report him to the bar for giving you all fictitious documents? I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to play this.
Yes,
did you report him to the Ohio bar?
He was. Well, I reported him to the FBI.
Yes, ma'am.
2 years ago, because they never called me back. The United States Attorney, the FBI, they called me on a conference call. I thought we had help. I was on a conference call for about 2 hours. They said it was going to investigate. They didn't do anything to help us. So it's like we just stand there. We've been crying out to so many people for help from my father, Sergeant Paul Brown Jr. And he's a Vietnam veteran. And no one would help us, and they're trying to cover it up because they know when it be investigated, because keep in mind, the police closed my father's case the same day. When a situation, a man be found dead in his apartment, pants down, penis cut, face beaten, his eye knocked out the socket. He don't even have a bottom lip, so I feel they shot him in the face too. The coroner don't come to the scene.
Whoa.
We have yet to talk to the coroner. We've called the coroner. They told me to stop calling there. I've called the fire department because they said Mr. Ron Stinger pronounced my father dead. I talked to him. He said he don't even remember. I called the health department. I spoke with Miss Becky Hollow. She was in on it too because she lied to me. She told me that she sent the attorney my father's death certificate a day that I received it from the attorney. And when I said, wait a minute, how could you send him the death certificate on that particular day when he emailed me the death certificate? She hung up in my face. So recently, about 6 months ago, me and my brother was getting ready to be on a podcast. This lady was going to help us. And my brother was going through the emails. And he said, Patricia, and I was like, what? He said, oh my gosh. The attorney sent us the wrong email recently. He made my father's death certificate. He sent us the whole application.
Whoa.
Yes, ma'am.
This attorney, had you all had any dealings with him before this? Or did they know your father at all? Did anybody have an insurance policy on him? I'm just trying to get to the motive of why they would play with your family like this, because this is absolutely wild. This is the wildest story I think I've ever covered on Black Excellence Hour. The fact that a man could be found unalived, mutilated, beat up, and the city of Cincinnati would just work all together with the lawyer and the health department and the coroner and the funeral home to keep the body for 2 years. I mean, were they trying to do experiments on the body? What vested interest does the funeral home have in keeping the body as it relates to like how all of this is playing out?
Well, see, the body is the evidence. So we're dealing with a lot of people with money, big giants, and they're covering for their friends because they know if they open up the investigation and they subpoena the cameras, they're going to see who was in that apartment. But it's one witness. And when I told the FBI lady, she's involved too. And I said, well, only thing I want you to do is open up the investigation. I feel by the witness telling me that the coroner never came out. It was only one officer, and they took his body on that Saturday before that Monday. That's enough to open up the investigation. She said, no, that's not enough reason.
Who was the witness?
This here black man from Cincinnati.
And
he works for the funeral home.
What did he witness?
And they called him to pick up my father's body. And he said when he went in the apartment, he said we just got him out of there, and it was only one officer, and they put my father in the back of the van. So he could have been alive. If a coroner don't come out and they don't pronounce you dead, my father could have been in a coma.
He could have, right. They could have sent an ambulance and took him to the hospital.
But they put him in a hospital gown to make it look like because everything was a cover up. They dressed him in a hospital gown. When we saw his body at the funeral home, you could see he was beaten in the face. I asked the director to pull back the sheet, and his feet was cut. They cut a big patch out of his hair in the back, and you can see the blood draining from the back of his head. And when he pulled back the sheet, he had blood draining from his back.
Wow.
And I felt they shot my father. He didn't have a bottom lip because the pictures I have, I zoom in on it. He don't have a bottom lip. But the reason why I say I feel they shot him, when I spoke with the investigator from the coroner's office, he told me the police turned him over to check him for bullet wounds. So if you thought he was shot, why you didn't call the coroner? The first moment the police knocked that door down and they saw my father on the floor and they thought that he was shot, they were supposed to take the whole scene off, call the coroner. No one wasn't supposed to touch anything. Instead, they banned us from the apartment. They took everything out of his apartment. We didn't get anything. None of his furniture, nothing. They kept everything because that was the evidence. They killed him.
And when you say that you are insinuating that this is the Cincinnati police.
The police covered for the landlord. My father been living there over 10 years. And I feel the landlord killed my father and the police helped cover it up. Because if you cover up a murder, that's conspiracy. You cannot cover up a murder. If you knock down a door, the police admit to being there placed on the scene, knocking my father's door down. Because they said they saw his body through the chain on the floor. But the problem with that, the pictures that I have show my father's body in the living room. Near the kitchen. So if he's near the kitchen, the chain is not going to open the door but so much. How could he see my father's body? And the biggest problem about that, like I said before, if the windows are locked and the chain is on the door, if someone else killed my father, how could they get out the house if the windows are locked? What, my father gonna get up and lock the windows after they leave? Because he didn't have a back door. He only had one front door.
Have you contacted any of the veterans associations?
Yes, ma'am.
And what
They
was
wouldn't
their
help me.
feedback to you?
At first, when I went to the VA and Miss Patricia Brown, she gave me the third death certificate. She has 3 different death certificates, and they said it was void. And they said, ma'am, the doctor didn't sign your father's death certificate. The only time we get involved, if your father would have been up under the doctor's care. Keep in mind, my father didn't see a doctor within, it's been a year since he was up under the doctor's care. And Miss Patricia said that there's nothing we can do. Now, at first, before I went to Miss Patricia, I spoke with this lady named Miss Jackie. She said she was going to write me a letter saying the VA doctor never signed my father's death certificate. She told me that. And then a couple of days later, she dropped it and she transferred me to somebody else to help me. But they wouldn't do anything to help me. I'm thinking my father's a Vietnam veteran. He done served the country, Purple Heart. When he get down and he get in his old age, he was 69 years old, they knew he was going through a condition being mentally ill, PTSD. But guess what? They were supposed to take care of him. They were supposed to do an autopsy on my father's body.
Absolutely. If they found you. And there was never, ever, ever an autopsy done, although they found him deceased in his home.
We had one done.
Okay.
After we fought to get the body, when we showed up to court, this was in 2019, because my father was murdered in 2017, and he was frozen 2 years and 7 months. So we went to court. We went before the judge, and I'm telling her, hey, my father has 3 different death certificates. The coroner never came out. The death certificate is not real. So she looked at the director of the funeral home. She said, is this a real death certificate? He said, yes. She said, give it to him. She looked at me nasty. Now you got one. I give you 7 days to get your father's body. When I come back on Tuesday, if the body's not gone, the funeral home can have him. And I'm like, what? So all of a sudden, I was still trying to talk to her. She told me to stop talking. My brother stood up and he said, you going to disrespect our father like that? He's a Vietnam veteran. And all of a sudden, the door flew open in the courtroom. It was 2 big white officers came in there. She looked at me and my brother, get them out of here. They walked us out like we was dogs. We was detained. And I'm like, what?
What did the autopsy show?
The doctor ruled it as homicide. He couldn't do a full one because my father's body was still frozen 2 years and 7 months. But he said, please, he told the detectives to open up the case. He feel it's homicide. He feel my father was murdered because the scene was disturbed. The table was broken. My father's body was laying on the floor with his pants down, penis cut, face beaten. How could that be medical? Nothing about that is medical. And it's so sad now that people they try to use policy and procedures to do their dirt, to cover up their dirt. And my father was murdered. Only thing we need is someone to stand behind us and open up the case. You're going to see who's in that apartment when they do a real investigation. They don't want to do one because they know my father was murdered.
When you reached out to the feds at the FBI, did the FBI respond to you in any way?
Well, I was on a conference call with them, and they said they was going to call me back. And when I reached back out to her to let her know, hey, I have the information about the witness telling me that they took my father's body on a Saturday. No fire department, no coroner, none of those people was ever there. Only one officer. And he put my father in the back of his van that he took back at the funeral home. So my father was never pronounced dead. She told me that's not enough to open up the investigation. And I asked her for a copy of the report showing that I made the claim. She was supposed to email it back to me. She never called me again. That's been 2 years. I even talked to the United States Attorney, Mr. Ken Parker. He's over Cincinnati. I talked to him first, and he had the FBI to call me on a conference call. Yes, ma'am. None of them would help us.
So how can we help you? That's my question, because I'm getting my wrap up signal. So how can we help you get some justice for your father? What do you need us to do? The listening audience, we have people checking us out all over the country with all types of levels of power. How can we assist you? Because what happened to Mr. Paul Brown Jr. is not okay, especially if he's one of our nation's warriors.
Well, we need help with funding to get an attorney, to get an autopsy done on my father's body, because he was never pronounced dead by anyone. He was never confirmed dead. So we need to do a full autopsy on my father's body. He needs to be confirmed dead, a full investigation. So we did a GoFundMe, and I have my organization, an organization on the line now, ANDL organization, which they would like to say something because they're trying to help me and my family.
All right. Hey, Rashid, you got to say it quick, though, because I'm getting my wrap up signal. You with us, love?
Defer to Princess. I defer to Princess. She's been working more closely hands-on. I'm in full support of the Brown family and anything we can do. But I'll defer to Princess because she's been more consistent with working with them.
All right, Princess, you're with us from the 7 cities. How you doing today? Welcome to Black Excellence Hour.
Hey, good evening, Mrs. P. Gray. Thank you for inviting us to the show. I'm the current secretary of ANDL, or the Anti-Negro Defamation League. Yes, I've been kind of working in a supportive role for Mrs. Brown's family on behalf of this incident that took place with her father. And like she just recently iterated, the primary and most urgent thing that the family needs is funding, so that way they can get the proper legal representation. Our focus as our organization as of right now is more on an educational basis. As we continue to grow and build out and expand, yes, we want to be able to access and offer any and all types of legal services, because we definitely see, in the light of recent events, just like Sonia Macy, the fallout of this case with Jordan Neely and stuff, our people are out here on a limb when it comes to the domestic terrorism that our people have been facing since the inception of this nation. So the most urgent need right now is, the support of financial help.
And how do we do that?
To be able to, well, right now she has her GoFundMe set up. I will share that in the chat.
Okay.
We've been on ahead and set up her GoFundMe. All proceeds go directly to the family, not our organization. We're not looking for any monetary payout or value. We're just trying to assist her because we just had learned of this story ourselves within the past couple of months. Unfortunately, at the time when this story was brought to our attention, I'm here in Central Florida, and we was dealing with a hurricane. So
I understand.
So we couldn't really do too much at that moment. But, as an organization that's built on trying to not only educate, but counter these continued harms and effects to our community, especially when it comes to police brutality, if we're not able to do anything else but amplify that story, then that's what we're here to do. And we're just trying to support her in any way, because like she has pretty much indicated to you, she's been getting roadblocked every which way possible. I also shared the link to the space that we had. There was another lady that had a similar issue with her son that was beaten and mutilated in the Ross County Correctional Institute in Ohio.
There's a supporter of the show who also went through something like that, Mr. Altariq Pleasant. His mother, Miss Vicky Willis, has been working very diligently to get justice as well. So I'll be sure to connect you all with her as well.
And also if there's attorneys that are willing to work pro bono, we understand that, there's so many cases across the nation. In New York, we recently had something at Marcy Correctional Facility with a brother being murdered in custody of the correctional officers. So, we need more Benjamin Crumps out here, right? We need a lot more lawyers who are looking to work with us because we are continually under attack. And we understand that there can be concerns, financially, we don't always have the means to do so to kind of fight for justice. But if there are attorneys out there who believe in, supporting justice for American Negroes, for Black Americans, we this is kind of like, let's ring the alarm and see how we can get some support from Ms. Brown and others.
So I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll let you have the last word.
Put this caveat, because I know you was touching on the politics of it. And I think what got me a bit perturbed with this case was the fact up until November 5th, the election, the NAACP, unfortunately, in both instances, these families had some type of communication with the NAACP at some point. Mrs. Nielsen specifically has had documented copious amounts of communications with the NAACP. And not one time has these legacy organizations, picked up the mantle to help these families. But I was being inundated, like everybody else, with solicitations for this past election. And I'm just, it bothered me because I could see that there was a lack of concern for our community. They are pretty much have divested out of the fight for protecting and safeguarding our lives and our, legacy in this nation. So I just wanted to put that out there because, like I said, our families and our people are really just out here, like almost pick a number and wait your turn to, deal with this, the threat of just some random person coming to attack you or kill you in some type of way. So that is definitely concerning, and especially when we're talking about politics. Some of these legacy organizations really need to step it up or let it be known to the point that, they just need to be pushed to the side, if you will. And, because at this point, the NAACP is just a shell of itself and is operating just in name alone.
Okay. So I'm really getting the wrap up signal. So what we're going to do is what I'm going to do is share the YouTube video on all of our platforms, as well as the GoFundMe. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push for legal representation, as well as promoting the American Negro Defamation League, because that in itself is something that we certainly need. And we're going to also connect you with people here in Chicago who are going through something very, very similar, so that we can find a pattern and then find the solution, because nobody deserves to have their loved ones treated like this. This is un-American. This is completely un-American, and they wouldn't do it to the migrants, so they definitely cannot do it to the American Negro and get away with it. I thank y'all for coming on today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. That was the strange story of Mr. Paul Brown in Cincinnati, Ohio. The music is playing, and that means that we are at the end of the show. What a heavy way to end the year. My God. Please pray for the family of Paul Brown Jr. Make sure that you visit all the links, drop some money, and pray for these people, because you guys, we are going into 2025. We are coming up onto a new year, a new movement, a new energy, and everything that has been done in the dark is coming to the light. We are in the age of Aquarius. Cat Williams told us, and he was telling the truth. See, in this moment, we see exactly who our enemies are, and we have the power to get away from them and create create the America that we want for ourselves, by ourselves. As full Americans, as American as sweet potato pie, you and I know that we are at home. Happy New Year. Please come out to the Chicago Red New Year's party. Email Illinois at Blexit.com, Illinois at Blexit.com. Come out to the party, have a good time, meet some new people, shake a hand, make a friend, and create the world that you want for yourselves. If you don't like what you're hearing, turn it off. Don't listen to it. These people are trying to trick you, but you are smart, you are loved, and you are valuable. This is P. Ray signing off for 2024, and ciao. See y'all later. Pray for the Brown family.